If you're planning to take your IELTS exam on computer and wondering what it's really like, or you live in a country like Pakistan where taking IELTS on computer is the only option now available, then this video is for you. As today we're going to talk to a candidate who recently scored a high band score of 8.5 on his IELTS academic test. And today in this video, he's going to share with us why he chose the computer-based test over paper-based, what the test day experience was like, preparation resources, and many more useful tips that I'm sure you will find helpful too. Thank you for taking time out today to interview with me and talk about your experience for your IELTS academic exam on computer. So first of all, congratulations on receiving an 8.5. It's a very high score and a score that a lot of IELTS candidates wish to achieve. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So can you briefly introduce yourself and share why you took the IELTS exam in the first place?
My name is Shahryar Asif. I graduated back in 2019, and since the past 3 and 4 years, I've been an online academic coach for many students based abroad. And I've also been planning on doing my master's from abroad, which is why I took this IELTS exam. Because, when you're applying for those universities, one of the first requirements that you see in their eligibility section is having a certain band of IELTS, which ranges somewhere from 6.5 to like 7 or 7.5-ish. So yeah, I had to give it.
Okay. So we can already assess that your speaking English skills, they're very good. So you have a smooth flow and there are no grammatical errors. So it must be easy for you to achieve the score. Did you expect that you were going to get an 8.5 because it's a very high score?
Well, to your point about me having a good grasp of the grammar of this language, based on that, I was expecting to get a good score, however, not the 8.5. And I'll tell you why I wasn't expecting the 8.5 plan, because I think I made some errors when it came to the writing section. We can talk about that in detail later. So I was expecting somewhere from 7 or 7.5, but definitely not an 8.5. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
It must have been a very nice surprise. Yes, something to be very proud of. And that is why we have chosen you to do an interview with us today. All right.
Happy to be here.
So can you tell me why did you choose to take IELTS on computer, the computer-based test over the paper-based version? What factors influenced your decision?
Well, to be honest, my first option was always to give it on the paper-based test, because I've always been comfortable writing my essays or answering questions with a pen or pencil in my hand and a paper in front of me. However, when I read some online discussions regarding people who had taken the paper-based test versus the computer-based test, I came to know that there are some slight advantages that the computer-based test has over the former. Mainly being, for example, when you're trying to write an essay, you don't write the final draft in the first go. There's so many errors that you have to rectify. There's so many lines you have to erase, restructure your sentences. So rubbing it out all out, if you have a pencil, if you have a pen, then once you write it down, it's just there. That wastes some time. It can make things a bit messy. Writing on paper, depending on how hard to read your handwriting it can lead to some confusion on the examiner's part, who's going to check your sentences, and maybe they can look at your handwriting, spelling error or something like that. So based on that, I decided it would be better to give it on a computer. Also, for example, for the writing or the reading portion, on the paper, you have to flip through pages, right? You read the questions, flip the pages back again, read the paragraphs, then go back again. So it's a hassle, right? Whereas on the computer-based test, you have things side by side. So on one portion, you have the comprehension, the paragraphs, and on the right side of the panel, the same screen, you have your questions. So I think it's good for readability. It has a good user interface, and it's has a good visual reminder of the time that's remaining. So instead of checking your clock time and time again to see how much time is left, how much time have you already spent, there's a visual reminder
an image of a clock. It tells you what time.
Exactly.
How much time is remaining.
Exactly.
That's good. So were you already comfortable with typing with computers before? Like, do you use a computer very often?
Yeah, as part of my teaching, the work I do, the students I teach, I do it on a computer. So I have been oh, I can say good with that, given that I have to type lots of things to help teach lots of students. Um, but when it comes to essay writing, I have always been comfortable with a paper. So going into the exam, I thought it would be difficult for me to do the essay stuff on computer as opposed to the paper, but it wasn't really. I think it went well.
It was fun. All right.
Yeah.
So let's come to some preparation questions and tips for our viewers and students who are preparing for the exam. How long did you prepare for the exam? And like how many days or
Mm.
weeks?
Registered myself uh, 1 week before the date I selected. And there's a reason for that. I didn't want to register a date that was a month away or like many weeks away, because then you get complacent, right? You go into procrastination. You're like, oh, I have so much time. I'll just do it in the last week or something like that. So I kept a 1 week margin so that the pressure on me to go study for it, to practice it.
To practice like all the modules of reading and writing and listening part
I
section?
Yeah, I certainly practiced some modules more than I did the others, but yeah, I practiced all of them. And you should practice all of them because all of them have equal bandwidths, equal weights when it comes
Right.
to the checking. So yeah, I studied mostly. I spent a lot of my attention to the reading portion and the listening portion. And this is because I struggle most with these portions.
Yes. So in the real exam, which part did you find was the most challenging?
The most challenging, I found the writing part actually, and that didn't have anything to do with the question being difficult or the I didn't have a plethora of ideas that I can put on paper. It had more to do with time management, and this is what I want to just put out there,
Mhm.
that take time very seriously when it comes to the IELTS exam. You can think about writing the perfect paragraph with the most verbose of what's it called? Those vocabulary. But at the end, if the time is finished, it doesn't matter what good ideas you had in your mind. You aren't able to put them on paper. So be very careful about that. That's what I would say. And that's the problem I experienced with the writing portion. So I missed out on the conclusion paragraph, and I think that cost me some marks.
Okay, let's now talk about some of the preparation strategies or resources that you use. So, which resources or books did you use? Did you go online to prepare? Did you watch any videos? How did you prepare for this exam?
So so I'm active on Reddit, and I joined the IELTS community over there on Reddit, and I searched for answers where many people were discussing of the good resources, a hard book or soft book that they can use for prepare for this. And I was fortunate to come across very, a very good book, which is called, I think, Cambridge Guides to the IELTS for
Yeah.
general and academic purposes. Yeah. So that was the resource and the only resource I used. It was so comprehensive. It had so many good tips about the format of the paper, what kind of questions you can expect to see, the best ways to answer those questions, what is the examiner looking for in your responsive. So it had all of that in it. And I think I didn't need to go to any other book because it had all of it in it,
Okay.
right? As for the reading portion, I from the same book that I mentioned, it had a very good tip about how students should skim the paragraphs before answering their questions, because there's a time limit over there. You don't have a time to go through all of those paragraphs again and again to figure out your answers, right? So what students should do, in my personal opinion, is that they should go through the questions first, all right, and then skim the paragraphs. What do I mean by skimming? I mean, read the first line and the last line of every paragraph, then go back to the questions again, read each questions one by one, and then search for their answer in those paragraphs, because there can be many paragraphs. Now, what this does is that when you're reading the questions for the first time, it gives you an idea of the responses you should expect to see in the paragraphs. Then when you skim the paragraphs themselves, you have an idea of what the information actually contained within those paragraphs. And so for the second time, when you go to those questions, you can locate those answers easily. Okay.
Right.
So that's my tip for reading. Yeah,
And in the computer-based test, could you see the passage and the question right next to it?
exactly. That is one of the benefits of giving this test on computer, and which is why I opted for it, is because it's very organized structure wise. So on the same screen, on the left panel, I had those paragraphs, and on the right panel, I had my most of my questions right on the same screen. So I didn't have to flip over the pages, waste my time. Okay, I had all of the
Could
information
just
right in front
visually
of me.
see the information and the questions at the same time,
Exactly.
which is
Yes.
good.
It's very readable and user friendly.
Right. And so, how did you practice for listening?
For listening, which is something I struggle with, as I've mentioned before, I actually took these free lessons on some websites, IELTS related websites, and also looked at some question videos on YouTube.
Hmm.
There are these YouTube videos. Students can easily search them up by writing IELTS listening exam practice paper,
Right.
something like that. So that's how I prepare for it. I practice actually 5 or 6 listening papers for that.
Okay. All right. So now let's
Definitely.
just move on to the last part, which is your experience of the test center itself. So, did you take your exam through IDP or British Council? And which one did
I
you choose?
took my Oh yeah, I took my exam through IDP, and the reason for that is I was more familiar with IDP as I wasn't really familiar with the British Council taking IELTS exam. As far as I was concerned, the British Council was just dealing with taking those GCE, O level, A level, Cambridge exams or A level exams. Yeah, so I hadn't really delved deeper into what the British Council's position on taking these IELTS exam is. So my first option was always
Yeah,
IDP,
the
and
exam
plus
is the
the
same. The exam is.
exam is the same. Yeah, and logistically speaking, the center for IDP was much closer to where I live. So,
That's true. So, location was
yeah,
the reason why you chose IDP. So,
exactly.
how
Yeah.
was your experience of the test center? Like when you walked in, was it clean? Was it comfortable? Was the staff friendly and helpful? How was your experience?
Very well, actually. My experience was very smooth. I arrived before time, out of habit, and they started everything on time. But first, you have to go through the whole process where you have to wait for your identification check-ins, right? So they ask you your information, I think, your phone number, your CNIC details, all of that, and everything was, I think, very professionally led. The staff was very professional. You are also not allowed to take any extra stuff like your mobiles or calculators. I don't think you need a calculator in IELTS exam, but any stuff like that, any copy pages like that. So there's a locker over there. You have to lock your stuff up in the locker, and then you have to wait for the exam to start. The examination hall itself was very nice, very comfortable. The seats and the table, the furniture, the computer itself, air conditioned room. So as far as the experience goes, it was fine. Yeah.
Finally, for the last question, what tip would you give to the students who are preparing for the computer based IELTS academic exam coming up?
My tip is for students giving any type of exam, be it computer based or paper based, and that is to familiarize yourself with the format of the exam. And this is very important. Doesn't matter how good your English is. If you're not familiar with the format of the exam, what sort of questions can you expect to get in the listening portion, reading portion, or how to prepare yourself for the speaking portion. So I think we won't be able to get a good grade if you're not familiar with the concept, which is why go to these resources, the resources I mentioned, or any other better resource that students can find online. Uh, just understand what format the questions will be on, and that is very critical.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And finally, that was for the experience for the computer based exam. Let's talk about
Mhm.
your speaking experience. So, was your speaking test, because I believe that either you have it on the same day or within the same week. So, was it on the same day?
Yeah, they have an option to give your speaking test another day, but I opted for giving my speaking test the same day. And I think it was like an hour or something after the rest of my exam finished. And they take you to a separate room. Whereas for the remaining 3 portion, most of the students are in the same room doing stuff on their own workstations. But for speaking, you have to go individually in front of your examiner. So my experience was, well, I'm a nervous speaker, as viewers can probably see from this video as well. I take a long time to think about my answers, or once I start speaking, I just speak on and on and on. But the thing is, that wasn't an issue when it came to the speaking exam, because they're not really looking for somebody who can read in an almost robotic or script like manner with the perfect vocabulary or very difficult words or adjectives that you can use in your exam. They're just trying to assess how comfortable you are using English as your language in speaking, right? So, what I got out of that experience and the little bit I practiced for the speaking exam was, don't fret about saying the right thing or having the perfect grammar or vocabulary. You just need to be able to articulate your thoughts clearly, right? If an examiner asks you something, you should answer that question precisely, right? You can be descriptive, as I was, but don't give lots of gaps in your answers, right? So if you're giving too many gaps in your answers, right, then I think that doesn't bode well for your speaking
I mean,
marks.
what about the examiner? Like, were they very formal? Do they look very serious? Were they smiling, or they would just look professional and they were fine?
Well, I can speak for only for my experience, on my experience, sorry. My examiner was very professional, but made me comfortable at the same time. I didn't get any vibe from them that they were like judging or they were, just trying to get it over with. Nothing like that. They were very patient, very professional. And which is why I went into the speaking test very nervous, blabbering essentially. But as the minutes passed on, I got more and more comfortable and started speaking better. And I think that has to do with the examiner himself or herself as well.
All right, that's great. And how long did it take for you to receive your final result?
I think I got it 2 days later
Okay.
on the email, which I used to create my account for
Yeah.
IDP IELTS. Yeah.
Very quick. All right. Thank you so much, Shariar, for interviewing and giving so many tips that will be so useful for all the people who are watching this video. I wish you best of luck for your future. And thanks
Thank
again.
you.
As always, if you found this video helpful, then remember to give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell notification icon so that you're notified every time I publish a new video. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one with another IELTS topic. Stay tuned.